On the heightened response and security after the terror attacks, we're joined by Jonah Blank. He's a senior political scientist with the Rand Corporation. Rand works in part on public policy strategies regarding security. Jonah, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Elaine.
First, I'd like to get your take on what is happening in Germany right now, this bomb threat, the security threat at a football stadium in Hanover. What do you make of these Western threats taking place so soon after the Paris attacks?
Well, unfortunately, ISIL did warn that there would be a spate of new attacks coming. Some in Europe, perhaps some even much further afield. We don't really know. ISIL's whole strategy is to spread terror. That's what they do. And even by targeting a place like a sporting event, a concert, even commuters, this is how they can spread maximal terror.
I want to ask you about intelligence behind that in just a moment, but we heard in our last report that this attack in Paris caught France by surprise, Washington by surprise, a lot of countries around the world. How is that when there is so much intelligence sharing, especially after big events that have happened, say 9/11 in New York, and you have ISIL making threats before these things happen? Are countries and governments just not taking these threats seriously?
No, Elaine, I think they're taking these threats very seriously, but a global threat, for example, when ISIL says there will be more attacks coming, when ISIL says there will be an attack in Washington or an attack in Berlin or an attack in any other particular city, that still is a hard thing to defend against. Will the attack come tomorrow? Will it come in a sporting event? Will it come on the metro? You can't have every country in the world exist on a permanent state of lockdown. That is what the terrorists are trying to make us do. And even if we did it, there would be no way for any nation really to maintain that level of alert.
Well, how would you describe the intelligence sharing among countries right now, especially since we've been seeing some coordinated attacks in Paris and Brussels and Germany? Could this coordination get better? Should it be better?
It always can and should be better. I don't think there's anyone in the intel world who would say that intel sharing is seamless or that it has no room for improvement. There are some countries that share it much more seamlessly than others, and there are some that don't work and play quite as well together. ISIL has been very good at working in these seams. For example, it has been using, for the Paris attacks, Belgium as a staging area and a conduit. Not because the Belgian government isn't good, but because the Belgian government has not been quite as effective at gathering intelligence about particular cells and particular neighborhoods in its own territory and sharing that information with other governments. I think we can all assume that there will be a lot better cooperation in the immediate aftermath of Paris.
And very quickly, about 10 seconds left, do you think it's easier or more complicated when we're seeing this coordinated manhunt taking place right now for these other suspects? Because Europe is so compact, you can get to one border very quickly, or is it more complicated?
It is more complicated. In the Schengen zone, it's very easy to move from one part of Europe to another. But we also have to remember Europe is a very capable set of governments. So the terrorists are more enabled, but the governments are more enabled as well.
All right, Jonah Blank, as always, we appreciate your insight. Thank you so much for joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thanks, Elaine.